Hello, and welcome to episode 47 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Tonight, we shall be discussing the exciting signing of the Rocket League team, Vainglory's start of the second split of summer season, a little bit about Dota 2's TI7 tournament appearance, and then we'll wrap things up with Cloud9's Week 8 NA LCS results. I'm your host, Havokpus, and today I'm joined by...
Once again, the doctor's in. Dr.Manhatten joining the Bodied cast once again.
And it's just us. Once again. Me.
It's all good. This show must go on.
Yes, me. A platypus cosplaying as Cyclops. And you, Dr. Manhattan from the hit comic book The Watchmen. A dynamic duo.
Name a better couple. I'll wait.
I could probably list them, but we gotta do the show. So there's no time. But let's kick things off with probably the most exciting news, and that is Cloud9 have signed a Rocket League team. That's right, you heard it here first, or probably not first, ladies and gentlemen. After winning first place at the DreamHack Atlanta 2017 tournament, Cloud9 has officially picked up the Muffin Men, a very skilled Rocket League team that people have been thinking we should sign them for a little while now, and it's glad that we picked them up. The team features Torment, Squishy Muffins, and Gimmick, and they are all really great. They participated in the 2017 Rival Week by Pro Rivalry League. Try saying that 5 times fast. Cloud9 went up against Genesis in their first inaugural match, and boy was it exciting. After a lot of back and forth, they won 2-1. Did you catch the game, Dr. Manhattan?
I actually did not, unfortunately. However, I will say that the second they signed them, I did like as much literature as I could on the former Muffin Men, now our Rocket League team. And I will say right now that doing reading on them, like I was stoked for them if I wasn't already, just because I felt like that's the one space that Cloud9 wasn't occupying yet. However, no, I didn't catch it. And actually, I think my friend sent me a VOD that I was going to check later on.
Oh man, you missed out. Watching it live was basically the best way I can describe it is it's like soccer and Demolition Derby mashed together, and it's just as exciting. There's all the chances of making goals, there's passing, there's explosions. It's so exhilarating to watch, and our team is just so capable. All three of them work so well together. They're team players, but they are playmakers as well. They really just play just really great, and it's super fun to watch.
Yeah, no, but like for future tournaments, I do look forward to watching these guys play.
Yeah, same here. I hope they get a lot of tournament wins because they're super great. All right, well, moving on to Vainglory, the second split of the summer season has begun, and Vainglory kicked things off with a bang, first by beating Immortals 2-1. They then faced Nova Esports in the semifinals, beating them 2-1. And then in the finals, they actually went up against Hammer Esports. So we all know how this ends. Cloud9 won. And they pretty much secured first place so far.
Yeah, I wish I had more commentary in terms of our Vainglory team, but that's like one of the esports I haven't really been keeping
It's pretty fun.
Too much.
I couldn't watch those games, but I'm glad we won. It's pretty much Cloud9 and TSM, and everyone else is competing for a third. So
the NALCS.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, it's glad they won. Hope they can keep on keeping on into next week. Now, before we get on to talking about NALCS, I want to talk a little bit about Dota 2, because we recently signed a Dota 2 team, and they're participating in probably the biggest, most prestigious tournament in all of the Dota 2 competitive season, and that is the International, this being TI7. And it's pretty big. teams from around the world come to compete for a huge prize pool. It's also like player funded, so the more that people put into the game, the bigger the prize pool gets. So always exciting to see. Uh, do you know anything about Cloud9's former forays into Dota 2?
In terms of their former teams,
Yeah.
I believe I'm somewhat like foggy on the details. I think what was it back? What did we participate in, like TI5, I believe, or
TI4
it
and
wasn't. Oh, yeah, I remember like just seeing like segments of them. This is like before I really started investing like a lot of my fandom into Cloud9. But I don't recall too much of their history in the international.
All right, that's fine. Well, the roster that we have now also was Cloud9's squad more or less for the 2014 and 2015 seasons. At TI4, they got to like the 5th, 6th place. TI5, they went 9-12. The team before we bought them under the NP banner, they got 3rd at the Manila Masters, 2nd at Zotac Cup, and 4th at the Dota Summit 7.
Yeah, I'm doing like more like just literature on them right now, and they've placed relatively decent. Actually, I did watch some of their play today. Actually, I'm not sure if you caught that.
Oh, I did. It was sad.
Yeah, I don't feel completely terrible considering. I mean, one of the opponents was, if to my knowledge, was OG.
Yes.
And they looked they looked outstanding during the Kiev major. I mean, they won the whole damn thing.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and ever since the last international, ever since TI6, like this team has been like Doji was looking too outstanding, so I had to feel bad for so much for that one. Who was the other one that we lost to?
We lost to a newbie, which I think is a Chinese team.
Yes, they are the TI5 champ. Like they won the TI5.
Oh, so we lost pretty big names. Okay, yeah, so that doesn't hurt as bad then.
I'm not sure how Newbie's doing in recent years, but I know that OG right now, like, from all of, like, the Dota 2 literature that I'm reading, is, like, an outstanding team. Like, so that one doesn't hurt too much. But obviously, the Cloud9 fan enemy wants to see them do as well as they possibly can.
Yeah, for sure. They looked like they, at least in the OG match that I saw, they had pretty good early game, but they just couldn't deal with, like, OG's split pushing and like smoke strategies. They had a tough time like taking the advantages they got in the early game and then transferring them over to the later stages of the game. So hopefully they can work on that. From what I have been explained to, the group stage is a very strange affair, and some people have said that it's almost impossible for us to not get kicked out of the group stage. So it's only day 1 right now, and of course people listening to this on Friday, we're missing out on a lot, but hopefully Dota 2 will do much better.
Yeah, I hope the best for them, and also like just their overall like. I believe that like at least to my knowledge, the way my friend explained it, like Dota's like bracket system isn't as like cutthroat as it as it usually is. So it's gonna be interesting to see if to see how like Cloud9 does take advantage of that, or if they can like create any leads based on that. But yeah, I'm excited for this TI. Really slowly but surely trying to like really start to. Ever since last year, I started really like being interested in TI, but like now that I have a slightly better grasp on it since last year, I'm excited.
Yeah, it as someone who pretty much knows nothing about Dota, I'm still pretty excited, especially since Cloud9 is in attendance. So hopefully it should be a good tournament. Hope we see a lot of really great gameplay. So I guess we should probably move on. There's not much else to talk about for Dota. So Cloud9 had pretty much a vacay week. For week 8, they went up against Team Liquid and FlyQuest. And Cloud9 won pretty handily, I feel. The Team Liquid series is actually probably more interesting than the FlyQuest series, I think, because with all of the recent roster shakeup, with them like bringing back Dardoch, and they signed Mickey, but Mickey wasn't like here yet, so Golden Glue still had to play. I think everyone was really watching this game, especially because the match before Team Liquid played, they played against Immortals, and they actually almost beat them. Game 1 looked pretty convincing, but they just threw. And I think Game 2, there were chances to where Team Liquid could have actually come out ahead and beat Immortals, but they just kind of dropped the ball. So I was really looking forward to see how C9 faced against Team Liquid, because they look like they've really hit their stride.
In the TL versus Immortals one, I would say that's somewhat credited to TL's actual talent and just the fact that we saw like Dardoch try to create winning lanes with his BFF Lorlo, but that's also telling in my mind of the fact that Immortals is actually their macro is kind of starting to look shaky, at least in these later seasons, or at least this late in the split. I mean, we saw against Dig, Dig completely out macroed them for the most part, and Dig did pretty well against Immortals. In terms of C9 versus TL, I would say the TF pick, it's super volatile just because, especially in competitive, because of how organized it is. Like the first gank is very pivotal to see how much like TF can actually like help other lanes snowball. I don't really think that a split push comp is really like, I think the only way like a split push comp works for C9 is if it's not really in the mid lane. I think that if you want to run a 1-3-1 comp, it's best to just give it to like somebody like Ray, but like if we saw weeks ago where he went off on Camille and could easily just push these lanes, or we've sometimes seen it with like Impact or Shen. But I don't think Jensen's your guy for these split pushing comps.
I remember him doing a post-game interview. I can't remember if it was after Team Liquid or FlyQuest or what, but he said that the team had actually specifically practiced Twisted Fate into Taliyah, so that was like a pick that they had planned. But in terms of the other drafting spots, I think they overcommitted to the split push because they picked Trundle and then they picked Tristana, so you have like 3 lanes that want to push, and that was kind of where they made an oops. And they didn't mean to do that, but they kind of drafted themselves into that kind of style. So it kind of bit them, but at the same time they were planning on it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. I can't remember where I saw it, if it was like a Sling esports thing or what. But I remember reading an interview that the TF into Taliyah pick was planned, and it was something that he said that they had specifically practiced.
Okay, maybe it's just limited practice, because I remember even thinking, like, I even tweeted it, just like, when was the last time we ever saw, first of all, when was the last time we saw a professional, like, TF in the NALCS? Like, second of all, like, when was the last time I haven't seen Jensen play that since, like, maybe, like, I think the early last summer. Like, it's been a while since Jensen's played that pick. Into Taliyah, I'm not sure how that matchup goes, but I might do some research on that later tonight. But it just didn't seem like they could really make any moves happen, and that really wasn't the story for games 2 and 3.
No, yeah. Speaking of games 2 and 3, Jensen's Orianna. Do you think it is Huhi, Aurelion Soul level good? Because he went 17-0-6 on Orianna in that match.
I think unquestionably, and I will be quoted on this one until the day it's not true, I think that we're looking at the best Orianna in the North American LCS.
He crushes it on Orianna. I don't know what he does differently, but it just looks like he does like twice as much damage as I would do on Orianna. And it's just weird. Like, he places the ball well, he makes all these really good shockwaves, he weaves his auto attacks in just right, but he looks crazy good on Orianna. And you can really tell with the fact that his KDA with that champion is, like, insanely high.
Yeah, and it's not like, the fact that we have such a large sample size of him on Orianna is just what's telling, that's the first thing. But the second off, like, I've seen, like, Oriannas in the NALCS, and even when competitive, like, they usually play, like, one style or another. Like, some will just try to play, some will use it as like, a safe lane pick into, like, a Syndra or something, or just try to just farm up and just try to impact, just impact it in, like, the mid to late game with these pivotal shockwaves. Or sometimes, like, an Orianna falls behind, they just build, like, more gold efficient, like safer builds, and again just try to get those good shockwaves or shield other people. With Jensen, it's pretty much a hybrid of both, where he's trying to push the lane as much as he can, trying to like weave like auto attacks and really just try to make the most out of the laning phase. And in these mid game fights, he's getting like 2-3 man shockwaves consistently, and some of these hitboxes just look funny to the point where I'm like, wait, whoa, that the shockwaves goes that far? Like, it's just his understanding of the Orianna is very, very impressive.
Yeah, he plays that champion, I'd say fairly aggressively, even though that's something you wouldn't expect from a defensive kind of champion. Because Orianna is more sort of like a defensive utility style champion, at least from her kit. So you're thinking, okay, he's going to kind of play safe, but then you see him like really pushing the limits in the lane. He's kind of roaming a bit to top lane or bottom lane to make these picks and get even more kills, and in the mid to late game he's really posturing to a point of where he wants you to kind of step forward so he can get a good shockwave. So I think that he really knows how to just push this champion to the limit, and it's really great to just watch.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that one.
I think the Team Liquid wasn't all sunshine and roses though. Game 3 I think was a little difficult. We had some real sloppy play at one point. Team Liquid was up 5 kills to 0, and it was 4 towers to 2. We had kind of a sloppy early game, but Jensen turned it around for us with making a really big Orianna shockwave, I believe. And, I mean, I have to wonder, if this was against Immortals, or TSM or CLG, I think we would probably just automatically lose that game. Because we had sort of a deficit, and against top teams who know how to really punish for those deficits, I don't think that we would really be able to get ourselves out of that hole.
That's definitely one that's really up for debate, and I'm really looking at the overall match breakdown right now of Game 3. We saw that Lorlo actually did fairly well on the Shen, and Rainover didn't have moves on like the Elise, which first of all I have to question the priority on the Caitlyn ban over like an Elise, considering Elise is like a powerhouse jungler. Maybe not the case this week, considering we're going into the new patch where Elise gets nerfed. But considering like TL was on blue side and the fact that he just got this like pick really early makes me question like a bit of the draft. From C9 side, because I'm looking at it right now, and C9 on the first round banned Zac, understandably, Maokai, understandably. Then they go with the Caitlyn, which I don't really think Piglet was terribly impactful, even when they won. Like honestly, it was. I mean, he was somewhat effective on the Kog'Maw, but in Game 2, we showed that we could easily shut that down, and really, sneaky so that he wanted to play that he could play the Caitlyn as well, even though he went 0-1-10 on it. So this part of that, I have to question the draft as well, but I do agree that most teams would have easily punished that like mid game and just completely snowball that into a win. So that's something that they do need to be wary about going into the future weeks or maybe even playoffs.
Yeah, it just, and the reason I bring it up is because TL is, they're sitting at kind of like around the bottom of the bracket in terms of standings, and you can't afford to show that you're making these kind of mistakes against a team like that. You should be stomping their faces in the dirt. You should be, just swiftly crushing them and showing that you're, one of the top dogs. And when you're looking kind of sloppy and maybe a little shaky in some areas, it kind of leaves people to wonder, like, well, how good really are you? If you kind of had some slight struggles against, like, Team Liquid. Though, to be fair, Team Liquid in the past couple of weeks have looked a lot better versus...
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Piglet, he was putting work in lately. So I think we definitely have to compliment him. And, Rainover is looking like he's on par again, at least to some extent. And Lorlo's looking like he's at least trying a bit harder. So I think definitely Team Liquid is looking a little bit better. But at the same time, it's still Team Liquid. You shouldn't, have this much difficulty.
I do agree. Like, they're on the verge of getting relegated right now, and everyone, the most commonly heard thing we've asked with Team Liquid is, what the hell are they even doing? But I think this match also like highlights like some flexibility within the team. I mean, we saw like Smoothie, like even over the weekend, like completely like started doing work on the Tariq pick, which he made popular like a bit more last split. But I was fairly impressed by that. He was also very good on the Bard. The only person that's still kind of I'm weary about is probably like the top side of the map with Impact and contracts. There's like the Trundle and the Gragas game weren't fairly impressive by Impact. The Galio game, like he did show a bit more prowess, and with game 2 when he played Jarvan, I mean he could easily just corral all them ups to set up Jensen for these wombo combos, which I think if you ask me, as well as Jensen was, Contracts was the true unsung hero in game 2. But yeah, I think that we should be concerned a bit, but I'm overall satisfied with this win.
I think we should be fine. Impact is looking better each week. Considering how he played at the beginning of the split to now, Impact looks way better.
Oh, absolutely.
And I also think Contracts has improved his early game presence phenomenally. He's now making proactive moves. He's trying to plan out a little bit more, trying to, I think, maybe communicate strategies of how he thinks the enemy jungler is going to do and try to, play around that and try to curtail whatever the enemy jungler wants to do. I think he's playing so much better, and he's really shaping up to be the jungler that Cloud9 needs, someone who has really good synergy with our mid lane, able to impact the side lanes when needed, and able to really put the enemy jungler on the back foot. So I think he's really shaping up for that. And we also have to remember, this is only his second split. Time has flown by for sure, but this is still only his second split, and he is a growing boy.
Yeah, no question. No question. I mean, this guy is 17 years old, for God's sakes. But but considering that for a young kid, he's no stranger to like high pressure situations, and considering he's shown that he has a few pocket picks of his own, like I know that most like Kha'Zix isn't the most popular pick right now. I only know like a small handful of junglers like within the EU and like the NALCS are still playing with the Kha'Zix, but the fact that Contract has that plus the Kayn. I'm fairly like the fact that he has this confidence going into this. Yeah, he should be all right.
Yeah. So let's finish off on a high note talking about FlyQuest. Game 1 was super bloody, and as game 1 was unfolding, I was just trying to wrap my head around like what happened that made it such like a kill heavy game 1. I think part of it was Lemonation and Wild Turner were getting super aggressive in the bot lane, and they were really trying to fight it out with Sneaky and Smoothie. And I think also maybe High's shot calling and Balls was also trying to get aggressive in the top lane, so I think FlyQuest's strategy for game 1 was probably just get really super aggressive with Cloud9 and try to push them early so they can try and get advantages, and then maybe trying to snowball from there and hope that Cloud9 can make a mistake. At least that's what I think happened.
That's actually what I was going to say that pretty much happened. But the issue that Fly didn't expect was the fact that C9 would play champions that either excel in the laning phase or just really want to get in your face. Like going completely ham on a Syndra like as Orianna. Maybe pre-6 you could get some damage and get some good trades, but the second she hits that level 6 spike, like you're pretty much done for if you try to ever like just blindly run in. Not to mention Impact was playing the Kled very well, and on top of that, we do have to question some of FlyQuest's bans because I mean, they let out the Maokai go, and anybody knows that's an auto ban in this meta.
Oh yeah, their drafting was super questionable. You give her Caitlyn both times. You give Smoothie a playmaker like Blitzcrank or Taric. You're letting again Maokai go on blue side. That's Maokai on blue side is super broken. You're giving Jensen a super big power pick in the mid lane. It seems that I think FlyQuest maybe really misunderstood the meta and what is strong. I think
and not only that, like he completely like didn't even respect like C9's win condition in Jensen, because I'm looking at their complete draft right now, and there was literally There was one in this entire series. There was one mid lane ban, and it was from Cloud9 banning out the LeBlanc.
Yeah, and I've seen this a lot on this this patch specifically, of teams really struggling to identify what this meta is and what is strong. Like what you mentioned earlier in the Dig and Immortals series, Immortals seem to really be struggling with trying to find their place in this meta. I think Cloud9 had a really good jumpstart, and they've recognized what are the strong picks and what are the weak picks, and I think they've been really good at adapting to this. I think some of the other teams have been kind of struggling. You know, Immortals, TSM maybe to a lesser extent, but they seem to have been having some kind of shaky games lately. So this meta is definitely kind of thrown a bunch of teams for a loop, because there are just a lot of strong picks in every single lane, in every single position, and it's up to the teams to kind of figure out which ones are really good and which ones can they kind of, sacrifice.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not surprised that we're seeing either too many of these like upsets that happen over the week, considering we're going into, or this coming week and week 9 we're going into a new patch. But still, because so many big changes happen, they're still trying to figure out what's the best way to play into like some of these big picks like Maokai, and really how to play into them or how to play around them, or what's the optimal like way to play when you have it in your hands. It's just thrown so many people for a loop, especially like the jungle pool, because the jungle meta just did a complete 180 from spring. So we really need to it's really gonna reward teams that are not afraid to experiment and have a really good understanding of the macro game. And it's only going to get worse from here, considering I don't even think it's confirmed what patch we're going to for playoffs, and that's going to really, really determine a lot for a lot of these teams going forward.
I believe 7.15 is the playoff patch.
That's the playoff patch?
I believe so. I may look up to confirm, but I believe writers have said that 7.15 is the patch for playoffs.
Yeah, and if you really can't figure it out by this last week, I mean, yeah, they get a week off after right before playoffs, but it's really crunch time for any team that is not secure top 2 right now. And if you really can't figure out this meta, which we've had a good amount of time at this point, then, I mean, what do you do at that point?
Yeah, for sure. And especially with patches like this, they don't really make too big of changes. It's mostly just minor tweaks. But sort of the final point, I want to talk about mid-jungle synergy, because it was certainly the Jensen show once again. He went 25-2-15. But I think, especially in that LeBlanc game that he played in Game 2, it was definitely facilitated by the fact that Smoothie and Contracts were constantly assisting him with getting these kills. Contracts was constantly camping his lane. Smoothie made a surprise roam where he looped around mid lane to go to the top river bush and come out from there to surprise high. They're just constantly setting up Jensen for these really great kills. Contracts even went off on Rek'Sai and was kind of carrying the team a little bit himself and going for a more DPS heavy build.
Yeah, Contracts completely was diving in some of the craziest fasts I've ever seen him do.
Yeah, I mean Jensen gets most of the credit because he had an insane KD8, but I think Contracts and Smoothie are the real heroes because they once again saw, okay, here's how we play this game. We're going to really help out our team and make sure that we can snowball them and get them to this point where FlyQuest is not going to have a good time. And I think they met that condition perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, 23 minutes, that's not an easy feat by any means. The only games I've ever seen that go that quickly were, just think off the top of my head, the only games I can think of that went that quickly was, I think, it was an H2K game that happened, this split in the ULCS, but other than that one, Tip versus Immortals week 1 of last, spring 2016, where they won, pre-20 minutes, 23, that's just a victory that literally just went by everyone's head and just was wow, that's it? Whoa.
Yeah. So I don't really have anything else to say about the FlyQuest series. I mean, it was pretty much one and done. There's not really much to talk about because it's hard to talk about games that are really stompy. So I think we should let's move on to the patch notes for 7.15. Some interesting buffs. I think they buffed a lot of weaker champions who maybe weren't in the meta or were they had a toe into the meta, but they weren't sure of how strong they were. Silver's Q buff is very useful, especially before it was hotfixed. I heard the damage was insanely broken. Azir gets soldier damage increase. Ezreal's Q is on a shorter cooldown. Kayn gets buffs to his ult and shadow form. While nerfs being to the stronger area with Zac, Cho'Gath, Knight's Vow, Elise, Gragas. So a lot of the playmaker junglers getting tuned down, while some of the weaker laners and such are kind of getting a boost. So hopefully we'll see some really interesting picks for next week.
Yeah, especially like we already saw thanks to like the Tristana meta that we're seeing right now, or like just the overall Energizer meta was what I like to call it. We already saw Sivir already being like a pick into like Tristana. At least Scar and Doublelift said like that was like a common pick that they understood. But the fact that they're giving her Q damage, giving her more harass in lane, with her already in a decent spot, it's gonna make her a very huge pick in the draft, and it's really interesting to see how teams adapt to that. It's also always, in my opinion, it's always exciting to see Azir, especially just because I consider him a necessary evil in tank metas, just because he's like the only DPS mage like that like is very practical in the competitive sense. So the fact that in the later games like we'll see his soldier damage, hopefully that helps him out. And I know that a lot of pros have been dying to play Azir. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that affects the meta.
Yeah, for sure. Also, we can't forget the God has returned with the Urgot rework. I'm unsure if we'll see him picked. He seems strong because with his shotgun knees he can, push the lane really hard and have, for like a marksman type champion, or at least like marksman in that he is ranged, he can 1v1 fairly easily, it seems, but I'm not sure if Urgot is still strong enough to see competitive play.
I think it's a step in the right direction compared to the last one, but on glance, I mean, I haven't really gotten to like the nitty gritty and the numbers of it yet, but just on glance, it seems a bit like, for lack of a better term, gimmicky.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks fun to play with. I messed around a little bit in the practice tool. His ult especially is hilarious to watch a champion just get sucked into your stomach and get blended to death. I think it's just a hilarious ult. Maybe we'll see it in like EU, since they're before us. But maybe we'll see some cool stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna see the Urgot again. I know that Keen's excited for that.
No. Yeah. All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts on the patch?
Other than I'm interested in seeing if the Gragas cooldown ult will like affect it in any way, and seeing if the Duskblade changes are enough. I would say that I pretty much said what I need to say about the patch.
All right, good deal. Well, we should probably close out with some match previews. Cloud9 will first be facing off in a rematch against Envy this Saturday, August 5th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Envy is competing with C9 and Dig for the best possible seeding for playoffs. Now, Cloud9 has looked much better since their defeat against Envy, but are still a little sloppy at times. Will our current level be enough for us to net us a win?
For Envy, I would say at the level we're playing, and also the fact that we've regained just a bit of footing and confidence, it's very well possible we could beat Envy. Obviously, the fact that we've already lost to them is kind of like the stigma. I kind of use that, like if I was a player, I'd kind of use that as a sense of motivation. But Lyra, while is an impactful player, I feel like is hiding the real, like, what I call, like, the real evil behind, like, or the mastermind behind Envy at some points, and that's actually Niski. Like, Niski is, like, I saw during the TSM series, like, fairly impressed me for a mid laner who's, for the most part, gone completely under the radar. And while Lyra, yes, is the super flashy player that gets, like, all the attention on Envy, and is really the one that's trying to escalate some of, like, these plays and really try to turn the, like, tide of, like, laning phases, if it's one player we should not look over, it's Niski. But knowing Jensen, I'm fully confident he can actually make more of an impact than the last time we faced Envy.
Yeah, I was about to say, Niski, ever since he started playing with Envy and starting, Envy has looked a lot better. They seem to be a bit more coordinated. They seem to be able to push their advantages more and try and get games rolling. They're making a lot of games, even against teams like TSM, even though TSM beat them. I didn't watch the game, but I heard that the game is actually fairly close. So if Envy is able to take, close series to these other top teams, they're certainly a threat.
No question that, like, Envy is a threat. I mean, the fact that the playoff spots are now officially closed and these guys are confirmed going into playoffs, and they've taken a set off of us already. These guys are kind of the biggest dark horse going into the playoffs in 2 weeks, and really the player to look out for is, like, other besides Lyra, is Niski. I think that the Seraph Impact matchup is slightly towards our favor now that Impact is starting to gain his form. If it was like 3 weeks ago, like when we were, I would say the matchups are more or less even. And also, the bot lane matchup I would say is about even, but knowing Smoothie, like, and I know that he has a few pocket picks, whether it's like Bard or Taric, as opposed to just the typical Thresh and like Rakan. It's going to be interesting to see what they can pull out this Saturday.
I would actually say that bot lane is going to be a difficult matchup because, at least from a laning perspective, Apollo and Hakuho look super good together. And they've been playing really well ever since they started playing together on Envy. Apollo has been a consistent, reliable AD carry, and Hakuho has been a consistent, reliable support. So them going together, I think Envy has a lot of safety in their bot lane. So they don't have to worry about bot lane, getting too far behind. So I think that that's something Envy might actually lean back on, since they may look at mid lane is lost because it's against Jensen. Top lane could go either way, but it's slightly impact favored. So I think Lyra may actually look to go to the bot lane more, since that may actually be kind of a really strong point to start the game with.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if Lyra tries to go focus there a bit more, just because we know Contracts likes to play like very mid heavy. So if Lyra does try to pressure Hakuho and Apollo a bit more on their own, they are already pretty decent. I will not attest to that, but it's really going to see. I really want to see how Lyra really tries to tip it in their favor, if he does try to go, or if he does try to contest Contracts and Jensen in these like small little skirmishes in mid lane, and seeing if they can take their mid laner and put him in the lead.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a jungler focused battle. I think especially in this meta, a lot of the matchups do rely heavily on jungle presence and jungle pressure. So it'll definitely be a jungle matchup. Hopefully they can win. It would do wonders for their confidence to have them win, because they can be like, yes, we overtook the thing that was kind of our black spot on our record.
Yeah, no question.
But moving on. So the next day, August 6th, Cloud9's facing up against Echo Fox at 3 p.m. Eastern. So Echo Fox has once again been struggling in the bottom half of the standings despite roster changes, despite introducing this 10-man roster and trying to do all they can to make Echo Fox a better team. They're still around that 7th and 8th place spot. So what do you think is going on here, Dr.Manhatten, that is making Echo Fox just constantly fall short of their goals?
In terms of like why it's so consistent, I have absolutely no clue, other than just the meme answer of, unlucky Froggen just with him usually getting 7th. But really, I would say a lot of the dysfunction right now, and I think that the dysfunction actually to some degree has been kind of stagnated a bit, is the fact that they now have like they've have a roster that kind of works now. Now that they're putting in it's Brandini, they're putting in Mash. I think Keith and Mash are interchangeable AD carries, and I think that either of them would work depending on how they're feeling. But Brandini, I've noticed, is like a noticeable improvement over Looper. And I mean, these guys, even though they're 7th place right now, I mean, they took a game off of Dig last week. They took games off of, if I recall correctly, they took games off of TSM, and they beat Phoenix 1. So these guys aren't like on the worst trajectory right now. And considering I don't think I've ever seen Impact play Brandini, one of my biggest fears is the fear of the unknown. So really, I think that's what we need to respect. Also, Froggen is kind of just a farmer, so I think that Jensen should easily be able to pressure Froggen in the laning phase, and if he tries to be greedy for some of this farm, I think that's something that point of contention where it's like I'm not even concerned that I think Jensen would easily punish Froggen for that.
Yeah, all very good, understandable points. I think the thing for me is that, and I can't remember which caster said it, but they mentioned that since Echo Fox is feeling this 10-man roster, it's really hard to build synergy and cohesion. Because since you're constantly swapping people in and out for scrims and stuff, they don't have as equal time. And the more people that you're doing that with, the less effective the scrims are. So, you're switching between like Brandini and Looper, Gring and Acadian, Mash and Keith. Everyone's kind of being jumbled around in these different variations, and it can be very hard to create a very cohesive team if, your players aren't really sure who they work well with. I can't comment much about their performance since I haven't really watched a lot of Echo Fox games. But I do know last time we played Echo Fox, we had a 70+ minute game. How can we avoid this from happening again? Because I don't want to see that.
Oh, I don't either. That was probably one of the most mind-boggling games I've ever
stressful. Seen. I wanted to die.
Yeah, I legit was at all points just wondering what the hell was going to happen. But if we want to avoid that happening, I mean, it's simple. Just the way Contracts was pressuring high on FlyQuest. Granted, FlyQuest is a slightly worse team, based on what the standings are showing. But I think that Contracts really needs to just pressure mid lane a lot. I think that Impact of then is different from now, so depending on who he goes against, I would like to see him try to play some of these super uber tanks like Galio, which he seemed to do fairly well on. And the bot lane, I mean, it's really just smoothly trying to play these playmaking supports or supports that can sometimes stall out these team fights like Taric. Some of his Taric ultimates over the last week were really, really good. And I want to see more of that coming out of Smoothie. But if you can exert the same amount of pressure you can that you did on high on Froggen, then we won't have another 50-minute game.
Yeah, for sure. I think another factor is probably sneaky in the catch factor. A lot of times he does get caught out a lot, so I think if we keep that to a minimum, I think we should be good.
Yeah, as long as it just doesn't keep on getting caught out, then yeah, you should be alright.
Yeah. So, finally, Dr. Manhatten, what are your predictions for this coming LCS weekend?
I will say that we will take that Envious. I would like 2-0. But realistically, considering that they've been looking not bad, it's going to be I would say 2-1 that we beat Envy. And Echo Fox, just because of how they played against Fly and how dominant they've just been looking for the past couple of weeks, I would say it's a 2-0 for Fox.
I'm going to give C9 2-1 for both games. I think we still have some sloppiness that I think needs to be cleaned up, and because of that, we're probably going to struggle. At least in one game. Maybe more, but hopefully not more. As well as with how Envy has been playing, and also Echo Fox's dynamic roster, it could add a kink in the works. So I'm going to give Cloud9 a buffer room of 2-1.
Yeah, that's understood.
Also, do you have any moments of the week?
Probably just watching Game 2 of FlyQuest and just thinking like, Jesus, and also kind of laughing laughing in just hilarity and also disappointment that we didn't get the perfect game. Because I think Balls Ball got the kill on Jensen that would shut him down. But that was probably the biggest moment this week.
Yeah, that was really great. Mine's going to be Rocket League, because never before have I been so excited and so invested in, like, a video game match. You know, watching people play it as, like, an esport. So, big props to Rocket League.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright, well, time to close out. So, thank you everyone for listening to the 47th episode of Bodied, a Cloud9 Fancast. I keep forgetting to say A. Anyway, feel free to tweet questions and feedback to us at C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. Questions might be answered on the next podcast, so send them in. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.